Alright, what's up everybody? So look, someone wanted a tutorial on water, and I'm not sure if you want a tutorial on water movement, water interactions, or maybe the character's way of controlling water in the animation. I didn't know which one you wanted, so I only chose to do two. And one of them is just an example, but not an example of every interaction. So, as you saw from the animation itself, it's pretty much fluent movement that's smooth, if I can explain it. If I can explain it any better, basically you want water to move in a general path like a stream, and you want it to stay in one form if it's suspended in air, which I imagine it would be if you're going to make water attacks, you know. But let's say if you're going with a realistic water attack, you basically just want it to be like I don't know, like Power Geyser from Super Smash Bros. Terry or something. You would basically want the move to be connected to the ground, and all related moves to water to be connected to the ground if it's realistic. If you're going for the realistic approach, if you're going for the kind of, the sci-fi-ish approach or the fantasy approach, you basically just want the movement of water to travel through the air in, like, I want to say, a smoothish looking shape, like something that you would be like, oh yeah, that looks pretty smooth. You want that, you want that traveling through the air as water, and you kind of want it to always follow that general path of movement smoothly. You know, as for this part, this specific part right here, I just made it crinkle up and then I made it go back down. Now, I mentioned, the water's movement. This is the water's movement, and I also mentioned the water's interaction. Now, the water's interaction is different depending on what it's interacting with. Water realistically has so many different interactions that it literally is one of the most versatile objects, in my opinion, when it comes to animating. But like all things that are versatile, they can also be very, very tricky to work with. You know? So let me just explain it. Realistically, if water hits the ground, it's gonna pop, which is what it's doing here. This is what it would most likely do if it hits something after being shot or falling or whatever. It'll pop on the ground and then it'll slowly dissipate or spread out. In this case, it just disappears. I didn't want to make it spread out. Now, when it comes to water and fire, well, it turns it into vapor usually, or the fire gets extinguished, or the water turns into vapor, in which it turns in which it goes into the air, and, make rain or whatever. That's another interaction. That's just a form of interaction. And I would say the other form of interaction that is the most interesting is interactions like freezing or electricity. For instance, sorry, if uh if if there's an electrical current and a body of water touches it, guess what? That body of water is now connected to that electrical current and is spreading the electrical current. That's how water works. Unless it's 100% purified water, in which it literally does not conduct electricity, or at least from what I understand. If you have really purified water, apparently it doesn't conduct electricity. I could be wrong. I don't know. And then there's freezing. There's cold air when it touches water. I guess if you want to go like that. Well, it just turns into basically a rock. It'll turn into a hard object. Now, the reason I mention these interactions is because when you're making an animation of any kind, you're gonna have one of these interactions or more when making the animation. For instance, if the character is simply practicing the water move, he's going to either have to move the water and make it hit something for it to truly end, in my opinion, because it needs to hit something. For my animations, it needs to hit something, or it needs to, like, go into a close or whatever. I don't know. Or, you know, it's just gonna have one of these interactions. It's just gonna have to, you know. Now, it doesn't specifically have to be electricity or freezing or hitting something or evaporating or something. It doesn't have to be that. It could be anything, but the interaction is depends on what you want the water to interact with, right? So, when it comes to the movement, I'll go over again. When it comes to movement, you want to keep a solid shape for the most part. make a little particle like fall off from time to time, mainly at points where the water is moving as it at its fastest and comes to a sudden stop. So here, it's going down. Now it's going up pretty fast, and since it's going up pretty fast, I made another part drop when it started, turning or making this little loop and then going into the ground. Yeah, you kind of want to make like small particles fall off. You don't have to, because technically I can delete those particles and it'll look generally the same and maybe just as good. So yeah, for water, and excuse me if I'm rambling, for water, you want it to stay smooth, you want it to be fluent like a stream, and when it hits things, you want it to pop like a bubble. When it goes into interactions with like the elements, you want it to react accordingly to the elements if you're going for a realistic approach. And even if you're not, you're still going to go for a approach similar to the realistic approach. And when it comes to a person controlling the water, well, all you got to do is make him do some silly looking movements and make the water follow accordingly. So if he raises his hand, the water goes up. If he makes a circular motion with his hand, the water goes into a circle. That's the easiest way I can explain water.